All right. Okie dokie. Okie dokie. I'm gonna turn that off. No more lamp. So we're just gonna get the grind out of the way. We're gonna go grind,
Even the greatest.
not much else to do. Let's go. Well, first of all, equip that. Second of all, don't have any water. Oh shit! You can lock. How do you lock? You can't lock? You can't lock the items that I want to lock. Now that's such BS. Why can't I lock that? Because it keeps throwing the items out of my inventory, and it's super annoying. Oh yeah, I was gonna wait. No, I did equip it. Never mind. I did equip it. Hello, unkindly 7 STDs. Let's go. Let's see if we can find this entrance. Let's also turn on better graphics. Nope, that's bad graphics. That's better graphics. Istria was not worth it. We'll try Alkmans again. This time though, I'm gonna try finding another room. Because I've been looking for the wrong mob in there. Oh, level up! Still no quick steps, Jesus Christ. Soon it's almost easier to just buy a new camo. Hello, Deathless. going bad because I didn't start playing until 9 p.m. So it's gonna be a short session. Fortunately, so we're probably not gonna get that much done. Is that? Looked like it, but I'm not sure. Nothing. It might have disappeared. Or maybe it was something else. Am I streaming on multiple platforms? I am. I'm streaming on YouTube as well. I wish I didn't have to, but Twitch doesn't have any systems to automate uploading VODs to other websites. And I keep forgetting and it sucks. It's literally the only reason. It honestly baffles me that people use YouTube to watch streaming. It's such a weird website for streaming. The delay is insane. You can't find streams at all on the website. Like it's literally the worst. It's like if somebody you're following happens to be streaming, you can notice it. Otherwise, it's like I don't know how people find streams there. But even so, people drop by randomly on YouTube as well when I'm streaming BDO, which is weird. Like, do they just type in BDO on YouTube and click live? I don't know how that even works. Because I can't like type in that I'm streaming BDO on YouTube, because it only has like 10 popular games in its game list. So you can't actually like put it in a BDO category or anything like that. It's weird. Where the fuck is it? There. Alright. Achman. Give me Achman. I have to pop open another book. Come on. Achman. Great.
Shush, shush, be quiet, Kuru. We will get into big trouble if we get caught, Kuru.
Alright, so now the question is, where do I want to go? Usually I farm... Let's see, let me take a look. Um, Elite Guardians. So that's what we want. Elite Guardians. Not the guys with hammers. It's not that guy. It's the monks. One, two, three, 4, 5, 6. Right? Yeah. There are 6 Elite Guardians here. That doesn't seem terrible. But let's check higher up. One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, maybe 8. This room might be good just for running around in a circle in it. One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Only 6 here, but this might still be nicer. Because it's just a shorter rotation. It just felt like there were more of them. Because of that. 1, 2, 3, 4. Ow. Uh-oh. 5. 6, 7, 8. Maybe this one. Maybe we start here. However, once again, game doesn't save the settings. Super scaling thing. I don't know why it doesn't save this. It's so ass. I've only watched streams on Kick and YouTube. Never spent any real time with Twitch and despise how YouTube handles some stream stuff chat side. Kick though doesn't have easy connection on my side. Yeah. I mean, you were in South Africa, right? So I imagine for any newer service, they probably are lacking servers down there. I don't really want to bother multi-streaming, I'll be honest. I'd rather just stream on Twitch. I don't like Twitch. But I have yet to find an alternative that feels actually decent. Rumble has a load of issues as well. Oh yeah, I forgot to use my items. I didn't even grab one item here. That. And then we auto activate that. And we're good to go. They die a lot easier here than in history. So, what happens when this collects dark energy? Like, it's collecting dark energy now. What happens when it finishes? Is that bad or is it good? I've never let it do that. If you kill it, it just kind of stops and everybody gets weakened. Now they have reduced armor here. Yeah, that's why I'm not really streaming with music. If you stream on Twitch, you can play whatever the hell you want from Spotify or whatever. Like they keep talking about how they're gonna make it like they're gonna start banning people for it, but literally nobody cares. Like everybody I'm watching are playing like Blind Guardian and shit. Like Twitch does not care about music copyright. But if you have even like a video game song that's like been after the fact licensed by Sony or something, like you can't even play that video game on YouTube and it will give you shit for it. But here I kind of just keep it low. There's just a bunch of killing noise. Ouch. Wrong pets out. Turn them on agile mode. There. Streaming on Twitch. For me, it's mostly just because I don't like the politics of the website. That I would not use it, but the alternatives are just barely worth it, and they've never been. So here we are. Yeah, we can turn on my Agris. Oh, come on. Again. I have a daily here now too. I don't know if it's really worth it though. Well, I mean it is worth it, but I don't know if it actually gives you much. Oh, come on. Oh, come on. He used my cooldown. The attack doesn't have... It doesn't have super armor from the beginning. Which means that very, very often you get stunned like 1 frame after the attack started. And then you lose the whole cooldown. I mean, I could just keep better eye on what's happening, but it's kind of hard to keep track sometimes. Because there are like 60 monsters nearby. Which is also why I was watching I was watching the Path of Exile 2 or the Path of Exile I was watching ExileCon, rather. And they were showing off Path of Exile 2 and stuff, and they had some interviews with people working there. And then they also brought in, they had a big panel of industry people who have worked and made like historical ARPGs like Diablo and Torchlight and whatnot. And they were asked about eyes on the ground, meaning danger zones, and all of these guys are like 60, 50 or something, and they were all very against it. But I'm so incredibly for it. I understand it, but I think it's like a casual thing to be against it. Anyone who cares about getting more out of the game, I think in general are more for it, because when you're fighting like 10 monsters at the same time, it becomes a total slog to keep track of what the fuck they're doing, like what's their animation. Like it doesn't really help necessarily that they have like wind-up animations, because like I can't see what's going on. And in those cases, it's just it just makes more sense here. I think pretty much all the enemies here should have some kind of like red marker on the ground to show what the hell is going on. Because most of the enemies here are doing some kind of like ground slam, and then when you get hit by them, you're like stunned, knocked down, whatever. And you can't tell that it's coming for the most part, because half the time it's like, it's like staggered animation? Like, is it hurt, or is it swinging at me? I don't know. But when you're a more casual player, it's like, it's just not immersive. And you can absolutely go that a big attack is coming, but there are things that you can't get across without it. And that's if you are fighting something for the first time in, like, let's say Final Fantasy XIV, because it's one of the most egregious, I don't know how to pronounce that, examples of it. Because they do it on, like, everything. When you are playing Final Fantasy XIV, when you are doing an encounter for the first time, you can do the mechanics. Most of the time. Because they have a bunch of markers and like ground stuff that show you what is actually happening. And for the most part, you can actually do the mechanics without, because otherwise you only have one choice. Like, either you play like super cautiously and just like run away from everything and don't do anything. Oh, ton of Grenadier, thanks. And or you just die, and you have to learn from dying. Well, when there are ground pies, you can just react to things before you've seen the full attack. You can tell that, oh, okay, something is happening here, or you can tell that, because that's something that's also a huge issue in like World of Warcraft, where something has a mechanic that's like, okay, when somebody gets this fucking buff, everybody has to gather on this player, and then you have to stand there, otherwise everybody wipes. And in World of Warcraft, doing that without having like a Discord or whatever, and talking to people, is just a nightmare. But in Final Fantasy XIV, all the raids are doable with randoms, because they always have like very clear markers what's happening. Like, if something is gonna blast some rays out from you and you have to position yourself, it's very clear, like it shows that. And you can just do it. And it works, it works great. But it also depends on the game, right? I don't think, oh, another tongue grudge. Okay, oh, thanks. I don't think it's necessarily that important in like ARPGs, but it is becoming more. And the reason I think it wasn't really is because ARPGs didn't have the gameplay to warrant it. Like, even if something was doing a big slam attack or something, you're not really playing it any differently. You're kind of just walking around in a circle and pressing your button. Yeah, World of Warcraft, even though I think Blizzard is a shit developer, they do learn from whatever is contemporary in the market, right? I gotta give them that at least. Yeah, it makes it so much easier to play with randoms because otherwise it's basically like if the random didn't watch the YouTube video, then it's a wipe. Or you have to wipe like 10 times until the random learns it. Because it's a lot harder, right, as well, to, even if you do have very clear wind-up attacks or wind-up animations, it's still really, really difficult to make a wind-up animation that like properly shows that there's gonna be like a beam attack or whatever. So I don't know. I don't really agree with the boomer takes on game development. I'm extremely progressive when it comes to game development. I am absolutely not on team games were better in the past. I am so on team games were fucking shit in the past. However, games did have more soul in the past to some degree, in the sense that people were actually, though it's not really true, like I want to say that people were like trying to innovate, but that's not really true. Because most of the games were not actually innovative at all. Like Diablo was not innovative. Literally all they did was they simplified Rogue and added graphics to it. That's all they did. They literally made Rogue worse and added graphics. So, in fact, like the grandfather of ARPGs was literally just dumbed down for the general audience, in a sense. But back then it was less about that, and it was more about like we just want cool graphics here. So it was still not quite the same. Innovation is something that has been lacking for way too long. I still think gaming is in its infancy. Like there is so much more you could do. Games could be so much better. Like it's absolutely insane. I know some people who they literally can't like imagine that Final Fantasy or like any like Persona could be improved. Like they just can't imagine it, and it's like it literally doesn't have real gameplay. It's like the gameplay is flop. It doesn't exist. So they can't imagine that a game that doesn't have gameplay could have improved gameplay. Like that's like the state of the gaming industry. Kind of weird. But that, for me, that is kind of lucky, because I feel like I can make things that no one else is making, but it also makes me worried that people aren't gonna go for anything that isn't just graphics and like Japanese teenagers. I think games now are a lot more advanced than games in the past, but not that much, to be perfectly honest. And sometimes in ways that aren't better. Which is also a very common innovation, making the game worse. Like, I don't know if you are a Persona fan or if you play JRPGs. But JRPG was like my main genre for ages. It's still one of my favorite genres, kind of. I'm kind of growing out of story games though, but Persona is funny because it's, and I talk about, I've said this so many times, but Persona is literally Final Fantasy 1, but worse. And there are so many JRPGs that are Final Fantasy 1, but worse. Most of the time they are Final Fantasy 1, but worse. Because they don't actually add any like depth. They just add mechanics that look or feel cool, but they don't actually do anything. Like when it comes to like what is the actual strategy in a fight, for example. Because that's my issue with JRPGs, which is why I can't play them at all anymore. There's not a single thought that goes into your brain when you're playing one. Oh, you're like Sandro, just playing porn games. But what I mean with Persona being Final Fantasy 1 but worse is that Final Fantasy 1 has one mechanic. Or not exactly, but in the grand scheme of things, it has one mechanic. And that's elemental weaknesses. Certain monsters are weak to certain elements. And then it also has like some accuracy stuff. It has healing, right? And you can like buff, but none of that is really deep enough to warrant much consideration. It's like if you take damage, you heal. If you're gonna die, you use heal. And then most of the time it's not worth buffing your characters, because you can just kill things. And the buffs just waste time. So all you have is elemental weakness mechanics. And Persona 4 or Persona 5 or whatever, they don't have any other mechanics either. The only thing that they've done is that they have they have over weighted the elemental weakness mechanic so that, like in Final Fantasy 1, warrior is like the best class in the game just because it just does shitloads of damage, has a higher health pool, and just gets good items. And so like just pressing attack is viable there, but in Persona it isn't, because just pressing attack does so little damage compared to hitting an elemental weakness that it's just not worth it unless you have to. Because in Final Fantasy 1, hitting an elemental weakness is double damage. But in Persona, it's times 50%, or it's 50% more damage. The enemy gets stunned, and you get a cool, you get another turn. And if you stun all the enemies, you also get an extra attack. So it's, in reality, it's like 4 times more damage on average. So doing a normal attack compared to that is just not viable. So now the game has just, instead of it being like, you know what the elemental weakness on this enemy is, so you can use that and they die faster. Now it's like you have to figure out what the elemental weakness is, or you can't win in like any time frame that is like reasonable. So now the game is just, and you can't tell either what anything is weak against by like their type or anything like that. Like, no, it's just completely random based on this little Pokemon shit that they have. So it's like a succubus might be weak to fire, while a red succubus might be weak to like fucking guns or something. Like, it makes no sense at all. So now, the only thing you can do in the game is just every single time you go into a fight and you don't know what they're weak against already, because you've already fought them, is to just use every element that you have and just AoE all the monsters until you hit their elemental weakness. Until you manage to just find all of them. And then next fight, you can do it a bit faster, because now you figured it out. And that's literally the entire game. There are no further mechanics at all. And in Persona 5, they made the game worse again by adding more elements. So now, on average, it takes more rotations of your, like more turns, before you figure out what the monsters are weak against. And there are so many people that don't get this. It makes me sad. Like, I made a post on Twitter saying this, like, and I got like 200 replies that said I was retarded, and that Persona is like nothing like Final Fantasy 1. Because it's not about the gameplay there. It's about like the overall vibe of the game. It's not about the gameplay. But people conflate the gameplay and the overall vibe. That's why people think Skyrim has good gameplay. Even though Skyrim literally has one button, which is left click. You left click and you walk back and forth to glitch out of their attacks. More Grey Wars. That's why we're trying to do more. We're trying to do much more with our game. Like, not just Fire Emblem with one more mechanic. We're trying to make something much deeper than that. And hopefully people are up for that. I don't I don't understand Pokemon. Like, I don't understand how people are still into that. I mean, I was never a big fan of it. I played it when it came out, and it was like, it was fine, but it has like like there's no mechanics there. Like, it's just weird. It's just weaknesses, right? So, like, if I'm gonna fight some guy with fire monsters, okay, I'm gonna pick monsters that are strong against fire monsters, and then I win. It's more about like having a proper loadout to defeat everything. But it's, again, Pokemon isn't really a gameplay game. That's just about the vibe, like just gathering monsters. So that's the whole goal there. And I feel like I have to say that. If not just to be more fair to the game, but like I have played Pokemon like competitively once or twice, and I don't understand it. It's so weird. Like, it makes no sense. It's literally just like you make a loadout, and you just make like the most OP loadout that you can imagine, and it's just gonna do something, like some wicked combo, and then you just hope that nobody has a setup that just is just inherently strong against your setup, because like they have some type that is just not gonna die, or they have a type that you're weak against. Like, I don't understand. But that's why I'm more look towards MMOs, because I really like gameplay. Like, actually like gameplay, not just like say it, like most people do in my opinion. And MMOs just have the best gameplay most of the time. Because it has like, you have to go to like fighting games or something. It also depends on the MMO, right? Like, Ragnarok Online doesn't exactly have stellar gameplay. But like, World of Warcraft has had pretty good gameplay a lot of the time during its development. Yeah, like, I think that's what you have to like about Pokemon to enjoy it. But then if you don't mind the gameplay, then that's just a bonus, I guess. And most people don't seem to, because so many people are into JRPGs, and JRPGs, again, don't have gameplay. And that's why I always say that gameplay is gameplay is like dead last when it comes to what's important when you're making a video game. Everything else is more important. But that doesn't mean that it's not a good idea to also have good gameplay. But I don't think good gameplay can carry a video game. to some extent in rare cases, but even in those cases, I think the game is a niche game because it is being carried by the gameplay. So from like a sales perspective for video games, like gameplay is the absolute last thing that you should focus on. Graphics number one. The rest is like the overall vibes. Rest is, you know, lore. Story also takes a very, very distant last place. All the story has to do is not be annoying and stupid. To carry you through like the music and the characters and the art. But now if you can deliver all of this, then you have a gem. But like, there are so many games that people say have good story that don't have story. Like Diablo 2. Does Diablo 2 have good story? No, it doesn't. It has shit story. There is no story. Because there is no story on purpose in Diablo 2. They intentionally did not have story in Diablo 2. Oh! I've been waiting for this. So there is story, but there's almost no writing in the entire game. So the entire game, the story is basically vibes. Like you have Diablo, and Diablo is doing some shit. There's like a cutscene, and then there are like vibes and shit. And all of this kind of culminates in a story experience. But there's no story. Like, what is the story in Diablo 2? Diablo came back. And then he is traveling west. Or is he traveling east? I don't remember. And then he frees Mephisto, his brother. And then you kill Mephisto. And then you go to Sanctuary. And then you kill Diablo. And then you go to Baal. And then there's some story there, like Baal is like trying to destroy the World Stone, or no, he's trying to corrupt the World Stone. And there's like a little bit of story and lore there behind the World Stone, but there's not much. Yeah, there's almost nothing about the World Stone, like what the fuck is going on there. And then you break the World Stone. And then the game ends. And there's like no aftermath, nothing. Like the game just ends after the World Stone breaks. And even in Diablo 3, it's like I don't even know if it's touched upon much that the World Stone breaks. It just kind of happens. But all of this is carried by the fact that Diablo 2 still has some of the strongest art direction and music direction in like video game history. Which is also why Diablo 3 fails so hard. Because Diablo 3 has a shit art direction. And the music is... I think the music in Diablo 2 is probably like okay, but it's not like stellar or anything. And then the story on top of this is... There's too much story. Which means that now the story is shit, because it's there. And you can't just kind of swing with the vibes and just kind of go with it. And a shit story is so much worse than no story. Or like a story that's like barely there, it's just there with what's going on and like history from just the art, you know. His son's story. Yeah, that's what I want Skyrim to be. I always wish Skyrim was that. Like, games like Skyrim shouldn't be story games. They should be like roguelikes. Or like they should be roguelikes in the sense of like story, and they should have like they should focus the writing or the gameplay around making things kind of happen in the world and making the world a little bit more alive, writing events and stuff like that, so that you can go around and explore the world and participate in things that are happening and like changing what is happening in the world a bit. More than it should be a story game where everything is just static. Like you kind of just go from town to town to just like farm quests, and then you leave when you run out. If the game was more of like a story generator, that would be so cool. Like there are mods where you can choose a start, so you just start somewhere. For me, that was so much more fun than always starting as like the Dovahkiin. But it falls short because there's nothing to do. So it doesn't help. Diablo 2 has stellar art. Like it's still their best looking game. Like Diablo 2, StarCraft look amazing. And then they went with the World of Warcraft style because they had to, because they couldn't make World of Warcraft graphics in 2014 that look good and have the game actually run properly. So they went with the World of Warcraft style, and then they made that their entire identity. I mean, they kind of already went that direction with Warcraft 3, but that was also out of necessity, because at the time, 3D art just sucked ass. That was just the reality of the situation. And unfortunately, they... And that's what they, like, they tried going back to that with Diablo 4, and that was a really good choice. But unfortunately, they ruined it with politics and just being shit. You know, ironically, the Diablo 2 remaster, that's their like third best looking game, and they didn't make it. Wasn't the predestined hero? Oh, you mean in Skyrim? They always have the same story, by the way. I don't know if you've noticed that. But Oblivion Morrowind and Skyrim all have the exact same story. Yeah! Whoa, 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 whoa. They've really been shitting on me hard here. I think that's a good sign, because the ones that are shitting on me are the monsters that I want to kill. These big guys. They're the ones stunning me. It's funny because Diablo 4 it didn't even start off that bad. Like they could have turned that around and made like a real comeback with it. But all they did was that they decided to leech. They decided to leech money from people. So they like overpriced their product to shit, which people don't care. Like casuals will pay any price. It doesn't matter. Like Diablo 4 could be $200. They would still buy it. It doesn't matter. It would probably not affect their income at all, except that it might trigger like an actual boycott. But like they can't make games. But this isn't a new thing with Blizzard. This is an old thing with Blizzard. They can't innovate, and they've never been innovators. So expecting them to innovate on the ARPG genre is not going to happen. So they can't do it. They tried with Diablo 3, and Diablo 3 is literally unplayable now. Like, you cannot play it. It is completely broken. And then, when they made Diablo 4, what did they do? They remade Diablo 3 with all the same problems. All they did was they took Diablo 3 and then they reduced the numbers a little bit so that it's like still reasonable, kind of. But it's still exactly just Diablo 3. And Diablo 3 sucks. Even though the core idea in Diablo 3 is actually my favorite, behind like the classes and the skill design, but they like ruin it. They anti-design their own game so that it doesn't work. No, that's just how seasons work. You're supposed to reset your character for seasons. ARPGs were always meant to work like that, more or less. Like you're not supposed to just keep playing the same character for over years and years. That's not how they're meant to work. inventory is full, but my maids haven't recovered from last time I used them. Anti-game design, that's something that makes me say that a game is dog shit. And it's actually very common. Path of Exile also does it a lot. That's why I think Path of Exile is actually a shit game. Even though I will play it more. Because like the game has a stated goal, or it has an idea of what it wants to be, and then they just implement mechanics around like their core functionality that invalidate their original idea. And that is super, super common. Come on. In Diablo 3, they have this really smart system, in my opinion, and like the barbarian in Diablo 3 is really well designed, where you have like you have your primary, which is a weak attack. It could be better designed there, but you have your primary. It's meant to build your resource when you are out of your resource. Otherwise, you're meant to use your secondary, which is your spender. And your spender doesn't have a cooldown, right? But then you have 4 more buttons. And these buttons is up to you. Like you can choose whatever you want. So if you want to have war cries, you can have war cries. If you want to have like Super Saiyan mode every 2 minutes or every 1 minute or whatever, I don't know how long the cooldown is, and just become super strong now and then, you can have that. If you want to have War Stomp with a stun, you can have that. And so on and on and on. And they have a bunch of different things. But, and the main reason why the Barbarian is well designed is because all of these abilities, they're both like utility, and you can use them offensively, like you can drag in monsters with them, and they like do a lot more damage. Like you can make War Stomp do like 540% damage or something, while your spender does like 340%. So you can have like a relatively big nuke on a cooldown that stuns all the enemies around you and pulls them in, so that you can do more damage. And it also gives you a burst of resources, so you can keep using your spender. So you have this system where you can choose to make your character like any way you want. Like this is true customizability. But then they add items to the game that are like the sets. First of all, you have to use set items because they give you so much more power. And the set item is like, if you have all 6 pieces, or however many it is, I think it's 6, then you deal 10,000% more damage with Whirlwind and like 1 more attack maybe. Like Whirlwind and Rend. So now you do 10,000% more damage with these 2 skills that don't have a cooldown. So now, all those choices where you could make War Stomp do 500% damage, like how much of your damage is that now? It's like 1% of your damage. Before it could have been like 20% of your damage. And then on top of this, so, and also now you have to use only these two abilities. Like you can only use Whirlwind and Rend now. So now they have deleted their entire build system just by adding one item set. And then they also add a bunch of items that increase the damage of like of Whirlwind by another 400%, and Rend by another. Like now you can stack Rend twice, so now your Rend is even stronger. So now there's even less reason to use anything else. So now you're not only forced to pick these two abilities, but it also limits you for like which versions of like War Stomp you can use. Because now there's no point in having damage on it anymore. So the only thing that's worth getting is like getting more resources so you can Whirlwind more. But then your set also makes Whirlwind like regenerate itself. So you can only use Whirlwind the entire time. So now there's no point in using any abilities that give you resources. So now you just like equip buffs. So now you just equip a bunch of buffs and just like, passively buff yourself or whatever. And then you hold your one button. So now they've just completely eradicated their entire game. And Path of Exile also does this with the passive tree. And with their items. Path of Exile also, it has really bad itemization. Even though they think they have good itemization, but it's really bad. Because the items themselves reduce build diversity. Because you can only have 3 primary or prefixes, and you can only have 3 suffixes on an item. And more damage is pretty much always a prefix. So if you're playing like a melee build, you need to have physical damage, physical damage, physical damage on your prefixes. And if you're playing a casting build, then you need to have like increased magic damage and more skill gem levels and shit. So now it's impossible to actually combine abilities just because of the items that they designed. Yeah, especially when it's such a shame, because when you're leveling in Diablo 3, it's so cool, because there are quite a few abilities in the game, and then each ability has 6 runes that change how it works, right? So you have like a bunch of different options for like how your ability is going to function. And it's actually really nice. Like I do prefer, like I think Diablo 3 at its core is the best ARPG that we have because of this. But then the entire game is like, because they don't know what game design is. They don't know how to make mechanics that make sense contextually within the rest of their game. Stop killing me! It's like completely wasted. It's a shame. I played a lot of Diablo 3. But more so, playing Diablo 4 in a party is also gonna be completely fucked, most likely. I don't know if there actually are any decent systems in the game to make you actually able to play with your friends, but in Diablo 3, if you try to play Diablo 3 multiplayer with a friend, what happens is that one of you finds one item, and that item will give you 1000% more damage. Like, it's not going to give you a 10% damage increase, not a 20% damage increase. It's going to give you a 1000% damage increase. So now, all of a sudden, you're just annihilating everything on the screen. And your friend is just gonna, like, his experience is just ruined now. Because all he can do is just follow you and just pick up loot. Because there's nothing else you can do. You can raise the difficulty, but if you do that, he's just not gonna be able to kill anything. Because you were already playing on the right difficulty for you guys. So all he has to do is just wait until like the difficulty catches up to your power, which it's not going to do unless you raise the difficulty. Or until he finds an item that increases his power by 1000%. Oh, come on. And Diablo 4 has the same system as Diablo 3, where you find one unique item, and it's like, okay, this increases your main ability's damage by double. Like, it's not as bad as it is in Diablo 3, but it's still like, this just doubles your damage straight up. So now whoever you're playing with is just gonna like watch you just kill everything until he finds something that catches him up. And then when you level up, because the game scales monsters to your level, you become weaker every time you level up. And because of this, you're both eventually gonna like trail off because the item that you found was low level. And then it just repeats again, like the next guy who finds an OP item is just going to be the one who just goes and one-shots everything. But multiplayer in RPGs has always been an issue. Because since it's all level and gear based, you just have to play with each other all the time, otherwise it doesn't work. But multiplayer has been an issue with RPGs, like, forever. Like, doing multiplayer in pretty much any MMO is almost impossible. Someone plays for, like, 1 day, and he's 5 levels ahead. Now you can't play anymore. That's why I don't really like level and just gear treadmill based MMOs. I want to see something else. I want to see an adventure based MMO. It's more about just doing things, playing the game somehow. This game is honestly the closest you can get to that, in my opinion, when it comes to multiplayer. Because the gear treadmill is so fucking slow that unless someone has been playing for like literally 4 months longer than you, you're still kind of at the same power level. Like, I don't know what's knocking me down. Is it that guy? I don't think so. But we are done here. Let's go to the door, one more round to the door, and then we're out. Then I'm not sure what to do. Maybe we do more story grinding or something. Yeah. I don't like levels. I've talked about this before, but I would love to see something else. But I don't know how you would balance it. Like, there would have to be some kind of leveling. Like, either via gear or whatever. That's why, like, when I've been thinking about this, one of the only systems that I can think of is to have a game that's permadeath. Permadeath or full gear loss. And the game isn't about like long-term gear tread necessarily, it's more about the world. And having like a world that is scripted to flow in a certain way. And you have like AI factions that are struggling to take over areas and stuff. And you have to actually fight back an enemy in like a PvP type scenario, except it's PvE. And something like that is the only thing I can think of. I forgot to turn in the quest. That makes me sad. Yeah, that's how you have to do it. You just have to say, like, this is our multiplayer character if you want to play. Otherwise, you have to play on another character. But then the issue becomes even more compounded if you have more than one friend. And like you guys can only play 1 or 2 days a week, and then one of the guys can't play. Okay, so now nobody gets to play. Right? That's why like you have to just be able to play on your main with your friends. Otherwise it just becomes a nightmare logistically for everybody. Yeah, and that's... I just want... I want all the areas in the game to be good. Like, I don't want the beginning area to be dog shit. I just want the beginning area to be a unique area where certain things exist that you can only get there. And then there's like another area that also is unique and also has unique things. And everybody just needs things from everywhere. I don't know if you've played Albion Online, but Albion Online is kind of in the direction of what I want. Where in Albion Online, the game it's not permadeath, but you have to keep working on your character to learn. Like, you have to keep using swords to become better at swords. But becoming better at swords doesn't make you that much better at swords. It just lets you use better swords. And then if you die, you lose your gear. And then you have to get new gear. And but the game is PvP based there. That's why it works like this. So that there you can work like as a weaponsmith if you want, because people die all the time and they need gear all the time. But it's not that big of a pain in the ass to get new gear either. So you can just, like, if you die, you go get new gear and you go out there again. More or less. Yeah, one of the few... Like, Guild Wars 2 is like one of the only MMOs that you can play multiplayer with friends, because all the zones have they have like maximum ranges. So you can only be in like the beginner zone from level 1 down to level 15. So you can always join your friends and just go and do the events. Now, they have failed at scaling down your gear. Like, you're still way too powerful if you have like end game gear when you're in a low level zone, so you just kind of one shot everything, which is dumb, because they have this system that's meant to work in a way, but in practice it doesn't work that way. So they failed.
If you're planning on having the real desert begins from here, Sandgrain Bazaar.
Oh, I already sold all my junk. Yeah, like, it is difficult, but you can do it in some ways, but I don't know either if it's gonna end up being like... If it would end up being something that feels like it makes any sense. It's like one of the things that I want to do the most, but it's also like impossible. Both because it's too big of a project and it's too experimental. But I do want to try making a single player game like that first. But you have to figure out something else the game is about than just purely getting gear. People have to get invested in the world somehow. And like I was talking about, for me, something that I would find interesting is that there's a struggle in the game at all times. Where you have to like participate in the like joint war effort. As an example, in Guild Wars 2, there are events in the areas where occasionally as like a centaur attack will spawn, and they will attack certain outposts. And if not enough people are there to defend it, then the outpost will fall, and this is now a centaur outpost. And then that might trigger another event. You know, there might be an event chain, but they're usually not that long. And this is what I think you could expand on. And like make it as the whole game, or like the main game. And then you kind of make each expansion have like its own theme when it comes to these things. Like you can have different things, like what's going on. Maybe one expansion is like a new continent, and you're like literally helping the helping your faction like conquer the areas and like settle there, like just killing Indians or something. I don't know. Like this is like a vague idea I have, but it's also like one of the only ideas I have when it comes to this. But then again, there has to be a reason, like, why you want to do this as well. So like what do you get out of it? So there still has to be gear and equipment and stuff. But it shouldn't be that much stronger, and it doesn't need to be that much stronger. Like, if we say that gear it keeps breaking, if you die it breaks, and what if like the best gear in the game is twice or 3 times as strong as like white vendor gear? More or less. And not like this game. Like it doesn't take 200 hours to get the best gear. It takes maybe like 40 hours or something. I don't know. But it's hard to say. But because that's like one of the core issues with ARPGs as well, especially like Diablo 2 back in the day, because it didn't really have bosses. So the entire game is just getting gear. And once you get the gear, there's nothing to do with it. There's like no world to participate in, there are no bosses to kill. Eventually they added Uber Diablo, but that was it. Where all your perks and abilities are bought with money, so it works. Installing parts, they give you abilities and unique upgrades to weapons, so forth, bettering everything, but it has no technical leveling. Instead of leveling by using money to upgrade your body or weapons, but how to actually make enemies scale. I think you don't need to make enemies scale. You just need to have harder areas. Like, you just have some areas that are harder, that has stuff that people need. But at the same time, you make sure that all the other areas also need things. Like, so that you have to do like group content with other people that's challenging, or Maybe even just solo content that's challenging. To get things, to get like the best gear or whatever, I don't know. But again, I want to think of some way to make things not just be about the gear as well. That's like the main issue. You can also have skill, like you can have, you know, you level up sword or whatever. That can also get reduced when you die, so then you have to grind it back up again. But it depends on if it just makes people quit playing, right? But like a hardcore game like that would be niche in the first place. Oh, we're going to Star's End. Yeah, I mean, I don't know either. It's a really difficult subject. And that's why I don't really have an answer. As compared to other genres like JRPGs, I absolutely have an answer how to make the genre better. There are there's so many ways to make the JRPG genre stronger than it is. You can you can basically do anything, almost anything except make it worse. You should try to not make it worse. But that's what they do. See, one of the core issues with staple JRPGs is that need to go this way. Is that like there are too many monsters, there are too many encounters. Because that means that you have to make the enemies die fast. So you're just like going through enemies that have no health. So even if you add more mechanics, they're not gonna do anything because there's like nothing to fight with them, because the monsters just die in one turn anyway. So it's irrelevant. So you need to turn down the encounter rates, make the enemies harder and matter more. That way you can add actual mechanics to your abilities. Like you can... yeah. It is. And end up being a novel when you are talking about game design ideas. But just adding cooldowns, I'm a big fan of cooldowns. To a JRPG, could do a lot. Because cooldowns, not having cooldowns is very difficult game design wise. Path of Exile is struggling really hard to do it. And without having some kind of resource system, you can't really balance abilities' functionalities to be strong or important. Because let's say you have like a stun that stuns all the enemies on the screen. You can't have that without a cooldown. You can have like you can have like charges or something, like where you use a normal attack and then you build up towards like a big attack. But this isn't a gameplay system. This is fluff if you do that. Because attacking is damage, and if you just attack 3 times and then you get 3 points that you can spend on doing a big attack, all you've done is you've just made like a cute little system where if you attack 3 times you can do a big attack. So there's like no real difference. It just increases like, or changes your average damage, kind of, and just lets you have like a super, which is just, it just feels. But mechanically in the game it doesn't matter, because there's no choice. You're just using the ability when you get to 3. While if you have abilities that have cooldowns, for example, then maybe you have an attack that can interrupt a spell. But that cooldown, that skill has a cooldown. Now you have to choose what to interrupt, because maybe they're using a weak attack, and then if you use it, maybe their friend starts using a big attack, right? So now it's like, okay, was it really worth it to use it earlier? That's a consideration that doesn't really exist otherwise. So that's why I think cooldowns are like more or less a hard staple for turn-based RPG systems. That's why MMOs use them. Because MMOs are kind of, like, they are, in a way, they are turn-based. Like, World of Warcraft has global cooldowns, and enemies have, like, a set interval where they attack. So, in that sense, it's kind of turn-based, in a way. But it also works the same way, like, you have a strong ability that you can only use now and then. Like, if you're playing a paladin, you have Hammer of Justice, which has like a 5-minute cooldown or whatever. And you have to be sure, like, what you're stunning. And it's like, especially in PvP, like, if you use your Hammer of Justice at the wrong time, that's gonna change the entire outcome of the fight because it has a cooldown. And the same thing is true in turn-based single-player games. Each deck uses different amount of it and forces resting on the player. Yeah, that's like spells in like Dungeons and Dragons games, like in Baldur's Gate or whatever. Like, your wizard can use 4 level 3 spells that day. And that's terrible. It sucks. That's why, while I don't like Pillars of Eternity 2, it dramatically improves on the whole idea. Because there you have, like, you don't have 4 level 3 spells per day. You have 4 level 3 spells per encounter instead. So you can just play the game. And for bigger encounters, you have like these charges that you can, like, you can empower spells, or you can recall spells. If you're fighting like a bigger encounter, you might, oh, I need more abilities, and then you can kind of get those back. But then you still have your abilities for like smaller encounters. It's just that now they're balanced around being available every encounter, so they're not just going to annihilate the encounter every single time, because that's what they do in like Baldur's Gate and older RPGs. You just go in and you're like, okay, I'm going to use my level 9 spell here. Okay, everything died. And then it's just over. But there instead, it's like the game is balanced. It works. You can play the game. Right? But they also, but yeah, there it's charge based. And it kind of works to some degree. And I think charges are fine. I just think that having cooldowns and charges at the same time is stronger than that when it comes to just depth. Because you can do so many things when you have cooldowns compared to charges. For example, let's say you have like a Warcry ability. One strong attack means you are forced into 2 of the smallest hits and then guarding to build up stamina again. I mean, it depends on how it's done, right? But like, if you have cooldowns, you can do so many things. You can have like a Warcry that doubles or increases like the damage of everyone by 50% for 3 turns or something, which is already super strong. But then it has like a 6-turn cooldown. And then you can then time this uptime with your other character's strong abilities. So you can like plan ahead, and you can also make abilities that like work differently based on like maybe an enemy is stunned, or maybe an enemy is on fire, and then you get like different effects based on what's happening, so that way you can choose like to use a certain ability with another character that applies something, and then you can have like this really nice synergy between the characters, where you kind of have combos where you plan ahead for the turns that are coming. And especially in a single player game, if you can have some hint of what the enemy is doing, like soon you're gonna get attacked. In Grandia 2 and Grandia 1, for example, they have this system where you have a bar that shows when everybody's gonna act. And then when you get to like the last 80% of it, that's like the action bar. And when you get to like 50%, it shows that an enemy is like planning to target one of your characters. And once you get to the action bar, you'll see what they're doing, and you'll see like, yeah, he's planning on casting this spell, or he's planning on using this ability on this unit. And because you have that information, that adds like a whole new aspect of strategy to what you can do, because now you can choose to like specifically interrupt this monster because you know that he's going to kill your character, or like this character can run away, or he can block, or maybe he has an ability to, you know, parry or take like a counter stance or whatever. But like, games just don't do any of this. Like, literally none of it.
I know with everything about the city. The Parliament started suppressing the people at the refugee camp.
So for me personally, I want to build RPGs more like MMORPGs, where you don't just have like a fire spell. Your character more has a kit, and it works more like an MMO character. Like in World of Warcraft, you've got, you know, like a Frost Death Knight. And when you use certain abilities, that might make another ability more powerful. You want to have like this and that ability up. Like you want to have diseases up before you use before you use Obliterate and Death Strike and stuff. so that there's like it has an actual function. And then in a single player game you can expand that to include all the other characters as well, so that like if you have a character that can apply diseases or something, then you have another character that can take advantage of it. So that your entire party is like a World of Warcraft class, kind of. This game actually has too little of that. Like while the game is while the gameplay is solid, it's actually very shallow. And over purified water. Because there's no real like I just use abilities. I literally just figure out, okay, I do this ability, then I do this ability, then I do this ability, then I do this ability. And then my first ability is back. And then I just do that again, like over and over and over and over. So in reality, like for PvE, this game is not exactly deep. What the fuck? Am I supposed to hand over purified water to? I have purified water. Why won't you take it? So in that sense, it could definitely have more stuff. Is it in here? There. Maybe some classes too, I don't know. I just like things that react to each other. So that you're like building towards something. You're building towards something and then you get rewarded for it. Set things up. Plan ahead, so it's not just like I'm just doing things. Who are we meeting now? Danielle Steamy. I love story. Story has a place, but I like when games are more focused. Like, decide what you want to do, and then do that. But don't shove story into games that aren't story games. That's why I really don't like I don't like having to do the story in like Path of Exile or in Diablo. That's why both Diablo 3 and 4 are really strong when it comes to that, because it has like this exploration mode where you can just run around and you just do things, and you just do dungeons and shit. Now it's really weak because there's just nothing there. You just do like the same dungeon over and over and over like 9 million times in Diablo 4. But the idea is much more solid than, oh, you have to play through the story and just skip all the cutscenes and shit. And that's just like the game, when the game isn't about that. The game is about killing monsters and finding loot and progressing your character. So why am I being tortured with fucking campaign? The reason is actually very simple. And that's because having to run through the campaign in Path of Exile is torture. And because it's torture, you appreciate the end game more. So that's literally why they haven't removed it. And they literally said that on yeah, at ExileCon this weekend. And they said that they've been toying with the idea of it, but if you do it, you lose something. And it's like this psychology where you look at it and it's so obvious, right? It's like, yeah, if I just could get to the fun part faster, like that would be better. I don't want to be tortured. But it's the same thing as if you're playing World of Warcraft, and instead of having to go to Undercity and go and take the balloon to Durotar, to go to the Barrens, to like do whatever you wanted and like go to the dungeon, compared to you can do the Barrens via, or you can do the dungeon via the dungeon finder from town forever. You don't have to leave at all because you can just do it. It's just more convenient. You can just do dungeons. It's more fun. There are just portals to every single town, every single city. You don't have to run for 2 hours to get to another capital. That's like, oh, we just got rid of all this tedious shit that doesn't do anything or add anything. Now the game sucks. Even though you removed everything that was shit. And that's just how it is. Oh, hold on. I had the window open. I'm sure my neighbors are super angry with me now.
Curious about anything? Good. I'll start with a coin.
So that's also why they haven't done it, because player psychology is really weird. But it's not super straightforward either, because if the gameplay was more interesting in World of Warcraft, then cutting out the travel might not matter as much. But in reality, it's like the content in WoW is just doing dogshit quests. So, like, having to run to those dogshit quests make them feel less dogshit because you finally get there and like, oh, now I can finally play the game. But there always has to be an aspect of working towards something, even if it's not fun. It makes the rest of the game more fun because it is shit. That's why I think traveling is pretty important, and why I also hate flying mounts. Well, it's one reason. Flying mounts are only bad. It's like the worst thing you can ever add to an MMO. Now here they've added, they're on the they're borderline adding flying mounts, which is dangerous. But you've got these gliding mounts, but when you get them to the highest tier, they can basically fly. This guy. Right now, I really like it, but that's just because it can glide. But once it can pseudo fly, then it's gonna be borderline whether it starts ruining the game. Because you start skipping everything. You just start skipping the entire world, and you don't even see the world anymore. And it just, You just point your mount in a way, in a direction, turn on auto run, and then you go to the toilet or go get some coffee, more or less. And you don't see the world. You don't. You like forget what it even looks like. Like if you're playing WoW, you get a flying mount instantly now. You just fly over everything. You like you're. If you're not leveling in an area, which you're not, because leveling sucks now, you're just doing dungeons because it's 10 times faster and more fun. You're like, I played a lot of World of Warcraft, and after Cataclysm, after you did like the single player one time, you never left Stormwind or Orgrimmar. Like you were literally just camping Orgrimmar for bonus XP, and just because you didn't have to go anywhere, it was meaningless. Because they're just doing dungeons is faster. It's faster than going to an area and doing even one quest, and it'll level you up 10 times faster, and it'll give you gear. And if you try to do dungeons while you're questing, you just can't do it. Like you have to pick one or the other. Because if you do one dungeon, you're like out leveling the zone instantly, and then you just leave. Played Clash of Clans? I've never played that, because it's a mobile game. I don't know what it was ever like. But all those games were like giga pay to win, I think. Nice pathing.
Calpheon will prosper until the end of time. Only the fit shall rule the world.
Are there any bosses? Garmouth. Don't need to kill Garmouth.
Your life already rests on abundance.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't really like the idea of dungeons that much. They're kind of difficult to actually put into the game. Because I'm 100% for the dungeon finder in World of Warcraft. But the dungeon finder still ruins the game. But not having the dungeon finder means that you can't do dungeons. Because getting a party is literally a nightmare. And if you're playing vanilla or classic servers, it's literally impossible because there aren't enough players.
Everything you do is the Lord Elion's will.
It's difficult. Now we're going over there. Level 20, then dungeon from there for levels, yeah. In WoW, it's level 15 and then dungeons.
Garnet. Spawning in 15 minutes.
That's why I don't think dungeons is good party content for, especially if you have like a level system where it's just about leveling, right? I don't think dungeons should be leveling content. The world, having stuff like Guild Wars 2 where you have events that spawn, where like bosses spawn, and people just kind of join in and you just fight a boss, and like that's the content. Like that's much better in my opinion than having a dungeon, because the dungeon is just gonna outperform the entire world, and then you just don't give a shit. Final Fantasy 14, you also don't. You literally just do dungeons.
Soldiers are mercenaries. How would they know? They've never experienced what real war is like.
I just want the game to be multiplayer. I want it to be an actual multiplayer game. At like all aspects of the game. But not from forced multiplayer. It should be just, there are people around and you're kind of just doing something together. And not like in this game. Like in this game, if there are two people in an area, you hate each other because you're just taking each other's farm. So, like, exploring an area should just kind of... It should be about working towards a common goal in the area, somehow. And that's why I lean towards, like, event-based stuff. But at the same time, how do you do that without the game just becoming, like, a Zerg? That is a big problem as well, because now people are just gonna be like, event over here, and then everybody just goes there. How fucking tanky are these dudes? Very. Whoa, shit! Extremely fucking tanky. Not so sure I was supposed to summon all of them at once. Just don't want my horse to die. Gonna put it over here. But I already had that buff, so that's not gonna help. What is happening? Oh, they just turned around and smooshed me. I think I can't do that. Okay, now I can. Okay. I hate forced multiplayer. It's like, oh, okay, I have to join a party to do this fucking area, okay. Now I just don't want to do it. That's how it ends up being for me. Also, I generally don't like playing with other people because people are annoying. But if you want to, it should be easy. Shouldn't impact each other. Should all be cooperative. And having second players in most MMOs as well just makes it too easy, right? That's why I like it in Guild Wars, where it scales to players, right? It's not perfect there either. But that's also because there's so many high-level players there that just they don't have their gear scaled down properly, and they just kind of make the events super easy and lame. Yeah, dude, people are tiresome. I don't got the energy for that shit. Where multiplayer is forced. It's forced in the sense that most of the content is like events, things that happen. And then there are other people who come there and do the event as well. But you don't have to join a party or anything, it's just... You just work towards your own contribution for the event. So if you just participate in it normally, you get gold rewards, so you get XP and money and whatever else. So it's forced in the sense that there are other people there, but you don't have to join a single party in the entire game for anything almost. And that's what I mean, like it's cooperative multiplayer that's very like recluse friendly, because you kind of just like you just play together with people you see, and you're not fucking each other by doing that, even without joining a party. No, man, don't summon my horse here. Oh, where the noise was. This questline seems really hard.
They will travel great distance just to see the star that fell from the sky.
Defeat some dudes. Got some dudes here for me to defeat. It's really important to stay protected the whole time. Like if you use attacks that don't have block and shit, you're just gonna implode like right away almost.
Garmouth. Spawning now.
Alright, dude. Thanks for hanging out. Have a good night. you throw? Nope, can't throw the enemies. Can't throw any monster in the entire game. Except for like early level humans. Okay, we're done. I don't know if those actually drop anything, but they're showing as rare. Doesn't necessarily look like they're that special. Maybe they are.
They will travel great distance just to see the star that fell from the sky. But they will only find disappointment once they realize
They said that they were gonna improve running against something and jumping, but I don't know if we've gotten that patched yet. We should have, but I don't notice any difference. It still sucks.
Black Star is destined to become Odalita's heart. I advise you to leave if you don't want to end up disappearing without leaving a trace behind. Black Star is destined to become Odalita's heart.
Are we done?
Soldiers of mercenaries. How would they know? They've never experienced what real war is like. How could they possibly know?
Do you need supplies? Then please wait your turn. The establishment of a secure logistic route is just as strategically important as fielding capable, well-trained soldiers.
Love this. I love quests. There's a cave, there might be gems. Oh, Despes, we are questing. Oh boy. Oh, it was just a small cave. There are no gems in here. It's a gold bar. What are you up to? What are you playing? What are you doing? I don't remember if you said you were playing anything. Once all these quests are done, then I can finally start playing the game. And by playing the game, I mean we can farm for 4 hours instead of 1 hour. And killing bosses. I want to kill the bosses.
To me endlessly. this world.
Can also do tree chopping streams.
Remembering who I was.
Alright. Now we need to defeat some dudes here. Okay, so I'm destroying their furniture now. I kind of like these enemies though. I'm actually kind of a big fan of like alien demons. Get more statues? No, not statues. Little pillars. I don't know what to call them. Tonight I'm gonna try making a better ship. I'm not sure I can, but I think I'm really, really close. My ship is called Boat, by the way. I don't like naming things. It's like the worst for me. It's the worst thing. I do not like naming things. Because I care too much about it mattering. Or like meaning something. Like I can't just name some bullshit from after something from Final Fantasy or whatever. It's my greatest weakness, I just care too much. Throw it into the fire. What fire? The Stars and Brazier. This is the Stars and Brazier. Unless there's one somewhere else. This is pointing somewhere, so... I guess it's over here. This is where the Black Star weapons came from. We gotta soon. Oh, oh. And see, this is also why I don't think questing is a good idea. It's not a good way to deliver a story or anything. In Guild Wars 2, you just kind of explore the area and you just do events that pop up, and that way you kind of figure out what's going on. Like there's a centaur invasion going on in the human starting areas. Like, and you're fighting the centaurs. That's the story. And then as you progress, there's also, you realize that there's a centaur invasion because the dragon's minions are like encroaching everywhere, so the centaurs are trying to escape them, and they're like attacking you to take over your territories and like get out of the way of the dragon. Or something like that. Or they are allied with the dragons. And then the further you progress, the more it starts having to do with the dragon. You don't have to do a single quest for that to be, like, evident. It has a main story, and the main story fucking sucks. And doing it is bad. Games, MMOs should not have a main story. Fuck that. Even WoW has too much of a main story, especially nowadays. Like, I used to think that they improved the game by adding like more focused questing. Because they really changed it from having like what the fuck? They changed it a lot from having like 50 billion quests that were trivial to having literally one quest line in the areas, and I praised them for that when they did that. But now I think both are dog shit. It was just a lesser evil. I still think it is the lesser evil, but it was still shit. Can I even do this questline? Is this questline too new? Why aren't there any monsters? Yeah. I have... Even with food, my AP is like 50 too low. I think we're gonna put this questline on hold. Let's do Odlytia instead. Or rather, let's do Odlytia instead tomorrow. We got another outfit. Okay. I mean, it's doable. This guy is definitely not too hard. But that other guy started blinking, which means I have to turn something off. Like this guy. Yep. He's too harsh. But the small ones are perfectly doable. Big guy, not so much. Nope, that was the big guy. We only needed to kill one. Now there are only a bunch of red ones. Rift Seed. Okay. Rift Seeds summon monsters. Need much better gear here.
happened here in the past. It's horrible.
Ooh. Alright, we can continue this. As long as it doesn't send us back here, we can see how long we can keep going here. But that's where we need to go later. That's gonna be in like 6 months when I figure out how to get decent gear. I haven't even figured out how to make a Black Star weapon. And the Black Star weapon needs to be... I think it needs to be like hit before it's better than what I have. Which is kind of weird. But at the same time, it feels like I'm supposed to... like start with that. Like a Black Star Awakening weapon. I don't know. It feels like it's honestly like a really bad AP gain. I've watched a bunch of gearing videos, but I'm still pretty confused about where to start. Should watch another one. Some of them are outdated too, so it's kind of hard. And going with gear, like, or going with accessories is also super hard. Like right now I'm just working on my Crimson Crescent Guardian ring. But even if I get that up maximum, that's like 7 AP. 7 AP is still a lot, but getting it to pen is gonna take like 100 billion years. What was that? Garden of a Fallen God landscape painting? I thought it was gonna give me costume pieces. That's bullshit. I don't give a fuck about this. 30 million? Alright. What? I did not see that that one was expiring. Do I have any more that expire? No, there was one that expired for some fucking reason. Well, that's a shame. It didn't warn me. It warns you about other things. It's been warning me about these fucking books. Doesn't warn you about costumes. Wow. Fuck off. Yeah, there it is. Oh, it's this one. This is like the basic. I kind of like this one, I'll be honest. But yeah, we're heading back now. Whether they ask me to go back in again, I think we'll stop here. And I'm gonna go and see if I can do some processing and get what I need to make my boat. I'm gonna need to do a lot of processing. Or maybe not that much, actually. It's like just a couple of thousand things. I'm just not sure I have enough herbs and stuff. So I might have to go out harvesting wild grass. Very exciting. And over the wood carving of a sea turtle. Okay. Persuade the smuggler to take the child to safety. Okay. Child trafficking. Gorgath. Gorgath is all the fucking way to Calpion. So I am going to press once we get to the road. Oh, I am going to press auto travel, and then we are stopping there for tonight. Tomorrow, programming stream as usual, and then I think we are streaming Starship Troopers on the Bickering Bunch. There's a new patch, so we'll see what that's about. Regardless, until next time, thanks for hanging. Have a good night. Bye-bye.